So we're going to start the fireside chat with Marty Cooper and Arlene Harris. Let me start with a date. Um, April 3rd, 1973. Does anybody know what happened on that day? Cell phone invented. The first cell phone call was made in Manhattan 50 years ago. Do you know who made that call? Marty Cooper, and who's sitting right here. So just set the context. Growing up a kid in Karachi, Pakistan, I made my first cell phone call in 1994. And it was just mind boggling. Like when I made that first call, I was like, wow. And that was 23 years after Marty made the first call. So just the impact of that technology on our lives have been profound that we take for granted. So today we are honored that we have Marty and then we have Arlene Harris. And she is a serial entrepreneur. She has sold multiple companies, and we're going to go into that detail also. Both of these are legends. One more thing I want to highlight. Last week, something happened. An award was presented, the Presidential Medal of Technology, to Marty Cooper. So congratulations to him. And I think I'm very honored to be sitting with these two legends. And we have a section called Legends of Technology for TechCon. And I think we are honored that both Arlene and Marty agreed to come all the way to speak and share their life history with us. At the end of the session, we will have a small token gift just for memory that they are here. They recognizing their contributions. They are legends in what they are doing. So what I'll do is I'll start with their background and bio, because not everyone, most of the Gen Zs don't know like what was the life before cell phone on iPhones and all those. So I'm gonna just tell a little bit about their history, and then we're gonna go into um, the future that they see and the impact that they created. So let me do some justice. So Marty Cooper, while at Motorola, conceived of the portable cellular phone, which is cell phone for short, and led the team that created the first phone in 1973. He has contributed to the technology in the wireless communication industry for 60 years as an inventor, entrepreneur, and executive. During this time, he contributed significantly to many important advancements in wireless communications, countless of them, from the first car phones and radio pagers, and a lot of Gen Zs will be thinking, what is a pager, to the latest cellular generations. He is known as the father of handheld cellular phone. During his 29 years at Motorola, Marty served as the corporate director of R&D. He started several businesses, including Cellular Business Systems, which he led to dominate the US cellular billing industry in the 1980s, as well as Arraycom. I think I'm very familiar with that, which became a world leader in smart antenna technology. His wife, Arlene Harris, and Cooper co-founded GreatCall, maker of the Jitterbug phone and service. Today, we are fortunate that Marty lives in San Diego, in Del Mar, and he still invests in companies as an advisor, and is always thinking about the next great idea and where to help, invest and help and mentor. Next is Arlene. Arlene has decades of experience as an innovator, entrepreneur, and board member and investor. Handful of companies that she built and sold. Most recently, through her incubator, Dyna, Harris has fired a Rethink, a new broadband solution for families. Before that, she founded GreatCall. GreatCall launched a product called Jitterbug, which offered and eventually was offered in partnership with Samsung to personalize cell phone experience. With over 1 million customers, GreatCall was sold to a private equity company in 2017 and is now the foundation of Best Buy's consumer health offering. In 1994, Harris founded SOS Wireless Communication that became GreatCall. In 1986, she started subscriber computing, now VeriSign, and invented the first management system to support prepaid cellular service and the first niche cellular offering. In 1983, and I can keep going on and on and on, she helped found billing and CRM market leaders, cellular business systems, and so on. Just the magnitude of the impact that she has created that we take for granted right now, both these gentlemen and ladies that are sitting here, it's profound. And it's an honor that we can now go a little bit into their history and life, and also how they see the future. So now the hard part, the questions. So, Marty, my first question to you is, you are called the father of handheld cell phone. How does it feel to see the lasting impact of your invention on the society?
Well, can you hear me now? I ought to clarify something so you know why Arlene has to repeat everything to me. I wear hearing aids, and I can hear everything perfectly. Not only do I hear the people talking, but I hear every reverberation from every surface in this room. So you'll just forgive me if Arlene has to repeat everything. I also ought to point out that I am Arlene Harris's husband, just so you. Uh, everybody here knows how important the cell phone is, right? So I don't have to tell you that most of the people in the world today communicate on cell phones. I always hesitate when I say cell phones. I think the people in England who call them mobile phones are much more accurate. And the part that bothers me about cell phones is that the cell phone was created, the idea of the cell phone was created at Bell Laboratories in 1947. And they introduced the concept of reuse, which is what cell phones do. And so they were, from the standpoint of technology, they were wonderful. From the standpoint of naming a product, not very good. Because who cares what a cell is? The operative thing is mobile. And one of the things that I learned very early in my career is that the only important thing about technology is how it improves the human experience. I don't think there has been a product in history that has had more impact on the human experience than the cell phone. It improves productivity, it improves people's health, it will improve people's education. The fact that people have access to every person has access to all the information in the world. Uh, I think there's a lot to be very proud of what society has done in creating the cell phone. But my other comment about the cell phone is that we are still in early days. It is my belief that the future of the cell phone is far more important, far more impactful than the past has been. And I hope we get a, Faisal, hope we get a chance to talk about that before. But I think that covers my feelings about the cell phone.
Very good. Thank you. Great answer. So next, Arlene, I think great call. And the Jitterbug phone. What inspired you? What came to you that create this technology that addresses a specific segment like older adults? What was the thinking behind it, and to convert into a profitable business and with a very successful exit? Can you maybe tell us a little about the journey?
Well, first of all, the idea of building a simple phone and getting it into the market in the 90s was almost a foreign idea. The carriers back then would not let those who had interesting ideas about alternative devices and alternative services on their networks. So the big chance that we took in the early to mid 90s was to build what we called a safety phone. And that wasn't my idea. That was we recovered some other innovation from a Silicon Valley company that had started that. The progression of that company was to acquire about 25,000 customers and prove that there was a market for a simplified phone. And the real clever thing was getting on the network. We ended up turning that company into GreatCall, and Marty had a relationship with Samsung for real, real technical kinds of purposes. And I happened to mention that I had, while we were visiting, that I had an idea for the next generation of what we were trying to do. And that turned into GreatCall. And Samsung agreed to build a couple phones for us. My team built the UI, the user experience, and the systems behind it, because that was not just a phone on the cellular networks. That was part of a much bigger system that included operator services and databases and things that we use to help our customers. And at that time, that was really the first high-tech product that was, besides healthcare, that was targeted at senior citizens to help them move into the next generation of technology. It was so very obvious that it was needed, but none of the big carriers and none of the manufacturers wanted to build a product. And Marty kind of helped me get one of those executives to build what we were looking at. And that started it. It was a very unique founding.
I ought to add some color to that because my only contribution to that story, Arlene said, was that I got an audience with the president of Samsung, and he listened to Arlene's story and became so enthused about it that he personally was the project manager. This is a guy that at that time ran $8 billion worth of communication products, and he personally took on this program because Arlene energized it so much. So there was a little bit of luck involved in everything, but also a lot of talent. And I hate to say nice things about my wife, but
I have to mention that senior executive had just started wearing glasses and he couldn't see the fonts on his own screens. So he knew the problem, and that really helps.
Yeah, I think that's a segment that, typically not the first priority, but having that, building a product, and then having a full life cycle, like with the exits and partnerships. I think that's what is amazing, that, identify a problem, build something, get traction, and then have an exit, I think. So congratulations on that. So maybe I'll follow up with that question, Arlene, that this is not the first company or the only company you have built, right? You have been a serial entrepreneur. So what leadership qualities do you believe are essential for building enduring business, right? Something that can, continue to be there beyond your kind of involvement in it.
Well, I think the first challenge, and your crew before was talking about this, I really think that you have to identify either an opportunity or a problem, and then validate that problem. That it's useful if the founder is feeling that pain themselves, which I was. I had parents and they were having problems using a cell phone and so on. But I think the most important thing is identifying a problem and thinking it all the way through and working the problem all the way through. And that's where I see a lot of problems with youngsters who have ideas about making something, but they don't think through the whole execution process and how that's going to scale, evolve, how it becomes sustainable, and that sort of thing. So I think you really have to have sort of systems thinking. And then on top of that, you have to be ready to persevere. And there's all those things that get in the way, and hopefully your health stands up to it, and you stay committed and persevere, and you have the right people around you helping you. And that's how we did most of the businesses that we did over the years.
Wonderful, yeah. And I think maybe I'm bringing you into the conversation, Marty. So you're an inventor and entrepreneur, and been driving technological innovation. So same question, like how do you build sustainable business model from your perspective? Um, when you're solving a problem, um, how do you make it into something that's sustainable beyond your kind of like a business and a technology that evolves?
The process of engineering and technology starts out with one important element, and that is people. The idea that technology is what drives everything may be useful, but technology without an understanding of the purpose of technology is always just to improve the human experience. So you start out by saying, I guess the thing that I have repeated many times is technology is the application of science to create products and services that make people's lives better. Once you get that into your mind, you know that people are mobile. They are naturally, inherently mobile. We know that everybody that came to this event had to go on the I-5 or one of the other highways. And what the impression you get is, when you go on the highway, is that nobody is where they want to be. Everybody's going somewhere else. And yet for 100 years, when the idea of mobile phones started, the only way you could communicate was when you were fixed and connected with a wire to a fixed point. So that was a no-brainer, Faisal. The idea that people needed to be connected. I say that now after 6 or 7 billion people have mobile phones, because when we introduced that idea, the Bell system, by the way, I want you to know that I try to be objective about everything. The one thing I'm not objective about is monopolies. I hate monopolies. I hate the whole concept of what the Bell system was in the past, but that's history. We've taken care of that, although today's carriers, I hope there's nobody here from AT&T or Verizon. It's nothing personal, but they still behave like they're AT&T from time to time. But the carriers really do not understand that it is the people that drive them, and that's what's crucial. Remind me of what the question was. I got off on it.
No, I think it's fine. I think you covered it well. Yeah, I think it's. But I want to build on top of what you were answering. My feeling is that again that we all underestimated how pervasive cell phone would be. It's one of the things that's used I think the most in the world right now. I'll give you an example that when I was working for a cell company in Pakistan, when we crossed 10,000 subscribers, we had a big milestone, 10,000, and now we are like millions and millions and billions of people are using it right within like 20-25 years. So do you think that we all underestimated the pervasiveness of this device, what it can? And now we'll look at the future, but like right now, like everyone has a cell phone. Like we go to even a poor country, he will have a cell phone. Like even if you have a cheaper cell phone, but it will have a cell phone that's it can become part of your life. So do you guys foresee that? When you were building it, do you see that it will be like such an integral part of every human being on planet Earth?
Why do I have all the simple answers? You got all these complicated ones. My prediction was at the time we got interested in this project, and by the way, the reason we got interested is that the Bell system announced that they were going to do this new thing called cellular technology, and they were going to let everybody communicate with everybody else, and the way they were going to do that was with mobile phones that were in cars. They had made up their minds that that's the way it was going to be. And we just knew that, the, well, what was the basis of their decision? They had a study done by a very reputable consulting firm. Who was that?
can see maybe.
The largest consulting company, they concluded that the peak market for mobile phones worldwide was going to be about 1 million phones.
Wow.
Guess what? They were right. The maximum number of car telephones that ever existed in the world was about 1 million. But they made the wrong assumptions because they were not dealing with people, they were dealing with cars. How many cars can be on the road? So my starting point was the assumption that when the long term, when you were born, you would be assigned a phone number. If you didn't answer the phone, you had died. That was the prediction, and I cannot tell you how many people laughed at me when we said that. They just could not conceive of the fact that everybody in the world who had any significance was going to have a mobile phone. There are some people that don't believe that today. If you go into the modern schools, they are now saying that the cell phone is bad for children. Here you have a device that gives these children access to all the information in the world, and the first thing that teachers in many schools, in the less progressive schools, are saying, let's take the cell phones away because they're interfering with the teaching process. Well, there are some of us that believe that perhaps the teaching process is wrong. And what we haven't figured out yet in many places is how to take this wonderful tool that gives these children access to so much and takes it away from them so they can listen to 1-hour lectures. And I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, Faisal, but the educational system is going to evolve, and it's going to evolve to the point where children are taught how to use the tools. We all did that when I went to school. Of course, none of you here don't even know what a slide rule is. But is that true? Anybody know what a slide rule is? No, I didn't think so.
Okay. So we have some.
And the slide rule evolved to a calculator. The calculator evolved to a computer. But could you ever imagine taking the computers away from students today in school? It's unimaginable. And in the not too distant future, taking cell phones away from children at any age, including my great-grandchildren. I don't want to brag about that. Children 5 years old are starting to use cell phones. They're very careful and monitored by their parents, and they're using them for educational purposes. But you can imagine when they grow up how effective they are going to be on these tools that they learn how to use.
So I think that's the thing we're doing now. Now we're putting on glasses and looking at the future, and we're going to see how does the future look like from both of your viewpoints. So before I do that, I think I just wanted to add what you were saying, that every generation rides on top of the previous generation. So I'll give you an example of my son. Like, when he was 2 years old, he was doing this on the TV. So for them, this was intuitive to him. For us, we learned through iPhone, right? And maybe like 8 years or 10 years ago, this interface. For him, he picked up, so he was 3 years old and he was doing this on TV because for him, it was like, okay, if I want to zoom in, this is right. So these are the things that, becoming very intuitive to people. So if you put on a lens and you look at the future on wireless technology, how do you see like what it is there that it can do and what challenges it can address in the future? Maybe I'll start with you, Arlene. Like, forecasting. Like, let's forecast. Like, okay, next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. What do you see?
Well, one of the things that I'm hopeful of is that that each of us will have our own private agent and our own private data and our own unshared, things that are restricted to our circle and our friends, and that we will not be in the Wild West. Because, I've got the WWW to me means Wild, Wild West. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that we will evolve the internet in such a way that we get back into control of who we are, what we've been, what our family is, all of the things that we have taken for granted up until recently, that lays us out bare. So I'm very, very much involved with privacy, with data collection, with data sharing, with all the movement of our data through the networks, how the network works, how can we make the network serve us rather than serving industry first, serve us first, and then have the services be informed, but not in control. So that's what I'm hoping for. I think with AI and some concentrated efforts to try to remove the social media platforms from influencing where parents have difficulty bringing up their own children in the way that they want. I think that's got to get solved. And I think that because most of this communications is done on cell phones, that the delivery instruments will have to participate. Can't be done in software. I think that we're going to have some chip level implementations of filtering or management of our devices.
Maybe Marty, future. So from your vantage point.
Of course, you all know that I agree with everything that Arlene said, right? What I would add to that is, as I mentioned earlier, I start out with what are the problems of humanity, and how will the mobile phone address those problems? And so what do you think the big problems are today? Warfare. For those of us that are engineers, nothing is more inefficient than warfare. People killing each other for no real reason. Second, a major issue worldwide, not much of an issue in the United States, but it is in Africa. It's a really serious problem now, is poverty. There's no excuse for that. We now produce enough food in the world to feed something more than the whole population. We haven't learned how to distribute it. And the other problem that we have, I addressed earlier, is an educational process that is not keeping up with technology. It turns out that the cell phone is going to address all of these problems, and I left out probably the one that's most interesting to everybody here. Let's talk about diseases. You know that we now have the ability to sense diseases on a person's body before they become diseases. You can't do that by having a human go to the hospital once a year and get measured, because these diseases happen sometimes occasionally, sometimes they don't. The onset will happen over a period of minutes. So can you visualize having a device on your body that anticipates that you're getting sick, that knows what the problem is, and identifies it so that you can transmit that information to another computer who can analyze the information and address the information that will solve that problem? That exists today in many ways. They are now, people are wearing wearable devices that measure aspects of our body. They can measure blood tests. They can measure respiration. I wear a ring that measures a whole bunch of things. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is look at my ring or the data from my ring so I know how I should feel. And if my ring tells me that I'm healthy and I had a good night's sleep, I feel wonderful. And if it doesn't, it gives me a bunch of advice on how to fix that. Well, just extrapolate that to every other disease. I anticipate that sometime in the long range future, all diseases will be conquered. People will not ever die from disease. They will die from accidents and for other reasons. So, how do we solve the issue of warfare and poverty? The poverty is very simple. That's all. What engineers do is make things more efficient. And if we learn how to do things efficiently enough, there will be plenty of things for everybody. But the real solution all of these things, and especially to warfare, is an educated population. And I keep repeating that because I think that's the most important contribution that the communications can do is educate all of our people to the maximum of their ability. Start that education early, continue to educate them for the rest of their lives, because I can tell you better than I think I must be the oldest person here. The most important thing in life, the thing that keeps people going, is learning. You have to learn because things are changing so rapidly that whatever you have learned in school becomes obsolete within a matter of a few years. And the only way to keep up is to keep learning. There's no question in my mind that a educated population would, first of all, would make sure that everybody gets fed, but an educated population wouldn't even consider warfare. They would figure out how to solve all the shortages that cause warfare, and we would have a much more wonderful future and a much more wonderful place to live in.
Very nice, thank you. So we'll have one question from the audience. So if you can get the microphone, and if somebody has a question, can raise a hand. In the meantime, I'll just have a quick question so that we can before the audience question. So, the future you're painting. One school of thought is that the digital divide between the haves and the have-not, there are people who have all these things and people who are less fortunate or underprivileged, is widening with the more innovation is happening. So, what are your perspective? What is this connectivity, broadband, wireless? What can that do to narrow down that gap so that the underprivileged communities or folks can also take advantage of all the goodness or all the benefits that are coming in? So just maybe a quick, maybe Arlene, like your perspective, and then Marty, and then we'll have a question from the audience.
Well, we know some of the advantages of the cell phone have raised millions of people out of poverty around the world in developing countries where they can sell their goods inner city or in their community, improving their health care and so on. The distribution of wealth, that's a political problem that we have to face. I think we're going to see some disruption over the next few years. We'll find out whether or not some of the strategies that are being used are going to help the impoverished or are going to contribute. My own hope is that somehow we figure out how to depend on the economies to improve with technology, with better agricultural methods, with better healthcare, with better education. That's happening in India. I know I have connections there, and things are improving. and investment is being made. And those of us that have done well have to keep investing and doing things to improve the future.
So anybody has a question we can only take one from the audience. Okay. So let me repeat the question. He's saying, how do you close the gap the technology and wireless technology can do in terms of climate change?
Yeah, it seems like just having better communications, all the telemetry that goes on terrestrially, especially, it's done typically over cellular and satellite networks. So how you monitor what's going on with the objective of being able to figure out what can we do about this, how bad is it getting, what have we done that's made it better. All of that's coming from communications, especially in places where there are no people, no cell phones particularly. But there's definitely RF communications in there as part of the solution of monitoring and impacting what's happening in climate change.
The real problem with climate change is the fact that it requires people to do things differently. You cannot keep doing the same things when the world around you is changing. And if in fact you become more efficient at making changes, and that's what technology does, and that's what education does, it makes us more flexible. So there's no doubt that people are worried about the world being destroyed by climate change, and I don't think so at all. I think one way or another, human life as a whole has gone through some huge changes over the centuries and over the millennia, and somehow life has survived. And there's no doubt in my mind that the next several thousand years, if we don't kill each other off first, that we are going to adapt and we're going to figure out how to live in a warmer world, and maybe we'll even succeed in making the world less warm.
So I think we are running out of time. So first of all, I would like to thank both Arlene and Marty for taking time and sharing their wisdom. Please with us. And then to show our appreciation, just a small token gift, recognition for what we call like TechCon Legends of the Industry. Thank you so much for taking time from
I'm so disappointed in all you. I thought you were going to ask some hard questions.
We're going to the VIP party. Marty, thank you. Thank you so much. So honored to meet you. Fun fact, the first TechCon happened in 2020, and both Marty and Arlene were part of it. So it's a full circle. Thank you so much for coming here.